Okay, let's bring back onto the show Congressman Jason Smith. He's ranking member of House Budget and Fox News contributor and economic expert Liz Peek. Congressman, first, your reaction to the polls. The president is underwater across the board.
Yeah, Liz, whenever you have one crisis created after another, whether it's the inflation crisis, the energy crisis, the Afghanistan crisis, the border crisis, all at the hands of President Biden, what do you expect? The American people have had enough, and it's pretty sad, Liz. I mean, there was a poll that came out in November that said 46% of Americans say President Biden isn't mentally fit to be president. That's pretty sad for our country.
Liz Peek, what would Donald Trump have done differently? How would Donald Trump have handled it differently? Because now you have the White House blaming and threatening supply chain companies for raising prices. They could use the FTC, the DOJ, to go after those companies on supply, in the supply chains. They're saying greedy meat processors, for example. Remember, Liz, they were quick to pull the trigger on using FBI terror firepower to go after school board parents. So what would Trump have done differently?
Well, the very first thing he would have done, Liz, is to go all out ramping up U.S. oil production, because one of the biggest issues for inflation is energy costs, not just gasoline, but also natural gas costs. So that is something that President Trump was very, very keen on. He pushed American oil and gas producers to produce more, and we did. We became energy independent, which nobody thought was possible. Of course, Joe Biden has taken exactly the opposite tack, so that's one thing. And I think, secondly, he would have very aggressively gone after supply chain issues. He would have gotten labor and corporations into his office and said, look, let's get rid of whatever rules are hampering getting stuff ashore from all these ships. Let's up our, creating sort of pop-up warehouses. Let's get this done. And I have a feeling that would have been pretty impactful. What Biden has done is sort of nudge here, nudge there, really nothing much to show for it. I think if you really push unions to get rid of some labor rules and so forth that's been hampering our productivity on these supply chain issues, that would have been a big help.
It feels like we're, Congressman, to Liz Peek's point, we're experiencing history in real time right now. It feels like the collapse of a presidency. The president campaigned as a centrist. Then he swung way too far left. And then you had the progressives and Pelosi railroading Congress and, to doing it the way they thought without negotiation, right? And, sitting on the heads of the moderates, losing the moderate touch. Let's watch the rhetoric ramping up from the president and Nancy Pelosi now. Watch this.
Now we look at 2022. I want to tell my Republican friends, get ready, pal. You're going in for a problem. And we need to stay unified.
Our country could not be better served than with this most experienced, capable hands than yours, President Biden. He's just perfect. The timing couldn't be better. And Madam Vice President, we're inspired by your work for the people as you continue to be an invaluable partner to President Biden.
What backs up this rhetoric pretty much across the board? Look at the other polls. Biden's job approval is underwater. What is backing up this rhetoric?
Liz, it blows my mind that Speaker Pelosi and all the Democrats aren't hearing and seeing what we are from the American people. The American people's had enough. They're tired of this reckless behavior coming out of the Biden administration and what they are facing, these high prices at the grocery store, the high prices at the gas pump. I mean, highest inflation in 40 years. And the Democrats and Joe Biden believe that the solution is to spend another $5 trillion to only add fuel to the inflation fire. They don't understand what real Americans are dealing with, and they're just pushing their progressive agenda.
Let's show, gang, show the New York Times Bret Stephens column on this. Liz, it's like the Democrats are starting to drink like the plane is going down. You know what I mean? That they don't, they don't believe that Biden is going to get reelected. Kamala Harris was asked about that. She said, we're not even talking about it. I mean, really, they're not even talking about it? I mean, you remember they were saying that, oh, inflation's not a problem a couple of months ago. Now it's such a big problem. The Fed's going to raise interest rates 6 times starting in 2022. The San Francisco Fed said stimulus added to inflation. Ray Dalio, Wall Street pros are talking about inflation. So, it seems like they are so out of touch, right?
They are, and they're not doing anything constructive. In fact, I'm very disappointed in the Fed. The meager effort that they have announced to rein in inflation, Liz, that's not going to have any impact for about a year. That's literally true. They should have stopped the buying of bonds right away, as opposed to just sort of tapering slowly. I don't know what they're thinking, honestly. But in terms of Joe Biden, 2024, read my lips. He is not going to run. And if he runs, he will lose. And every politician in America knows that this is true. Yeah. He is not going to be capable of doing so.
And the Biden agenda is over. It's done. They're not going to do it next year, Congressman. I mean, the far left losses are piling up. They didn't get free community college. They didn't get Medicare expansion. They didn't get a wealth tax. They want $80 billion for the IRS to ramp up audits of everyone when they're going to raise taxes when inflation is going up. This is complete meltdown in the Democrat Party, and this is historic. It's Nancy Pelosi sat on the heads of the moderates and caused a collapse in real time of the Democrat Party. Your final word.
Think about this, Liz. President Biden's approval numbers are some of the lowest ever of a president, but they're still higher than Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. The Democrat Party, where they have one complete control of government, the American people aren't happy with it, they're done with it, and they're not having it.
You know what? I promised Liz Peek the final word last time. Liz, your final word, quickly.
Well, I would also say Donald Trump would never have allowed the $1.9 trillion rescue plan to pass, Liz. That was probably the biggest igniter of inflation that we've seen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That should not ever have been done.
We got it. Congressman Jason Smith, Liz Peek, good to have you on. Come back soon.